One. Hello, everybody. How's it going? We are live on Grounded. I've lost track of what episode. I didn't pay attention anymore. But my Q&A live stream. We're here with Drew from Tailosive everything EV tech. He has a lot of YouTube channels and some big successful ones. So hello, thank you for joining today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on. I just want to set the record straight. I'm a big fan. I watch all your videos consistently as quickly as I can. I'm honored to be here. Thank you for having me.
Oh, well, thank you so much. I didn't know you were going to do that. I appreciate it. I watch your videos as well. Today, before I forget, today's December 11th, 2023, just so everybody listening in the future knows for context. Yeah, you commented on one of my videos a long time ago. And of course, you have the check mark. And I'm like, well, you know, when you're new, especially, oh my gosh, a check mark commented on my video. This is insane. So I had not seen your channel before that, but I immediately subscribed. And now I know a lot more about iPhone thanks to you. And it's so funny because you do those skits in the beginning of your videos. And I had not really watched Apple events before. I usually would just kind of learn after the fact or something. And then I watched one and Tim Cook comes out and he goes, "Good morning." And I'm like, oh, it sounded exactly the same. Like I thought it was you. I couldn't believe it. So it's just so funny to me. I love that. It's your
I'm happy I was able to forever taint your perspective of Tim Cook.
For sure. Because I heard you do it. I mean, you know, probably 20 times before I ever heard him do it. And it was like, perfect.
I guess I have a lot of practice. That's probably why.
Awesome. That's so funny. Okay. So today we'll be talking about, I mean, you know, the live stream is for everyone to have a discussion. That's kind of my favorite part of YouTube is talking with the collective, as I call it, all the audience and, you know, people, you know, just when you get everyone together, there's so much knowledge. It's insane. And posting videos isn't that good for back and forth? It's like, I'm talking at you. So with this live stuff,
guess what topics people are interested in, which we're not great at.
Yeah, exactly. So with the live stuff, we want to hear from you guys. We want to take your questions and kind of discuss that and dissect that. So we'll do that. So get your questions in as we start talking here. So, you know, my thoughts for today are Cybertruck, mostly, of course. But you brought up Aptera. Do you want to talk a little bit about, you went to the Aptera factory, which is awesome. Do you want to talk about that experience and kind of what you're excited for out of that company?
Yeah, it was so much fun, mainly because I'm an efficiency first guy and I care about trying to make the most out of the designs and engineers we have and trying to think outside the box a little bit, like the Cybertruck is so outside the box, trying to radically change the way we look at pickup truck design. I think Aptera is kind of radically rethinking the way we look at passenger vehicles. And I just got so much more excited for the future of the company after seeing everything in person and driving the prototype and meeting the CEO. And what I've loved about that brand in particular is they won't shy away from any question, any concern people have, anything that's like, hey, does this make sense? Does this make sense? I've never worked with a brand this open before. That's so willing to just say, yeah, ask questions. We'll give you the best answer we can. And usually it's very thorough. And typically any tiny, well, did you think about this? Did you consider that? Did you think about this? They're like, yep, we thought about that 5 different ways and more ways that you didn't even consider. And this is why we came to that conclusion. And I was very skeptical of the company when I first found out about him. I was like, 1,000-mile range. That's ridiculous. That's a scam. And the more I read, the more I asked, the more curious I was, the more sense it made. So I'm just very happy and proud to be part of that little community. And, yeah, it's just an exciting new, like, innovative chapter, I think, in automotive history.
Yeah. So with the 1,000-mile range, do you think that's achievable like anytime soon? Or do you think that's more of like an attention grabber and then it draws you in and like, look, we are really efficient, but maybe that's a little aspirational?
Yeah, it could be. I like all EPA estimated ranges, particularly the more you focus on aerodynamic efficiency to get your EPA range. Usually that means the easier it is influenced. So Tesla often relies on aerodynamic efficiency to get their really good EPA range figures. But that's why you notice most people saying Teslas don't hit their EPA range, but other brands might. In fact, for other brands, whether it be Porsche or BMW, it's actually common for them to exceed their EPA range estimates because they're relying more on the Peter Rawlinson coin term dumb range, which is just put a bigger battery in there. Don't worry too much about the aerodynamics. That's less influenced by the EPA because aero is so drastically different depending on your speed, depending on the temperature, depending on the elevate. It's easier to influence that battery.
Yeah.
So I would not be shocked at all if the largest battery pack Aptera doesn't necessarily hit 1,000 miles per charge every single time, just like my Tesla doesn't
Sure,
hit its
yeah.
EPA range. But I still, going into it years ago, I kept remembering, okay, let's assume the real world range is 30% worse with every Aptera trim. Okay, that's 700 miles of range instead of 1,000. Nothing else is coming close to that.
Nothing wrong with that.
That's still insane, particularly for an EV with solar cells on it that can charge itself and also cost under 50 grand or close to that, be moderately affordable. Yeah, it's a bit more niche because it's a 2-seater and a 2-door, so it's not going to replace the family SUV. I know that, but we have the data. Tesla probably has this data too. That's why I'm very excited and interested in the next generation vehicle platform from them, because Tesla has like the crowd data that shows how many people on average are in each vehicle on the road. They probably know.
Oh, they know for sure.
They know the numbers that other companies have done the research for, which is that most cars don't have more than 1 to 2 people in them at a time. Sure, there's edge cases where it's a family road trip, and sometimes we got 5, 6, 7 people. But vast majority of the time, probably more than 50%, more than 60%, it's just one person, maybe two, driving around a giant, huge heap of metal and moving all this air out of the way, using up all this electricity, maybe charging from a dirty grid. And I feel like the Aptera addresses all of the vast majority of use cases more than people realize.
For sure. Nothing wrong with the dirty grid. No, I'm just kidding. So I do have an Aptera on order. Now, I'm not sure.
What did you order?
What did I order?
Which trim? Like what's your config?
I don't remember. I ordered it a while ago, so I honestly don't remember.
You don't know?
No, I don't remember. I'd have to go look at my email, but I can get back to you on that. But I don't know if I'm not in the, a lot of people are like, oh, you had a Model X and you buy Teslas, you're like super rich. I'm really not. I'm really the first Model 3. The first Model 3 I bought was a really stupid decision. Like if anyone looked at my finances when I bought that first Model 3, they would have been like, dude, don't. What are you doing? And we made it work. And then now there's YouTube and, we can, kind of do that stuff. And we're in a different spot now. But I'm definitely not in the place where I could be like, yeah, I'm just going to buy a couple cars so I have them, right? But with all that said, I do have it on order because I'm totally with you on the efficiency camp. And obviously going from gas to electric was just a massive leap in efficiency. And so that was exciting for me. Excuse me. And so that's why I'm excited for Cybertruck, because now when I bought that Model 3, I was debating between a Model 3 or a Chevy Silverado. Those were my two choices at the time.
Oh, and really?
Yeah, I ended up going with the Model 3, very different. But I went with the Model 3 because of efficiency, because I commute a lot, drive a ton for work, and I didn't want to pay all for the gas, and I was autopilot. I wanted all that stuff, but the efficiency is what really was like, let's make the jump, not do gas anymore. And so I'm excited for Cybertruck because in the grand scheme of all vehicles on Earth, it's insanely efficient still. But then once you get into the EVs, you do this game. I'm sure you do it while you're driving where you're like, oh, I got to get the best watt hours per mile possible. I don't want to use any energy if I don't have to. So now my thought is I really don't want to drive a gigantic empty Cybertruck to work, 4 days a week. I go to work 4 days a week. I work from home 1 day a week, thankfully, and use all that energy when the Cybertruck's gonna be empty. I don't need a bed most of the time, but I want it and I will use it. I will utilize that stuff. And we have 2 kids, so we will have 4 to 5 people in there sometimes. So I would love to have the Aptera as like my commuter to use a tiny bit of energy, and then the Cybertruck. Now, financially, that doesn't quite make sense. It'd be smarter to just use a Cybertruck, but it's just kind of a cool setup, in my head. So
it looked like a very futuristic driveway. Very weird looking vehicles everywhere. I like that aspect of it. I like that it's controversial. That's kind of what drew me to the Cybertruck in the first place, is like so many people hate it. And I was like, nice. That's great.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Okay. So we have a pretty good amount of questions coming in here. So let me get to some of these, and you guys can spam me a little bit, but there's not too much. So I should be able to get to all of you. But I don't know if you're like me and get stuck on a topic and talk about it for 10 minutes.
Oh, I do. Definitely.
Okay, cool.
The same way.
All right. So I don't really hold back on this one. So somebody asked, I'll put it up there. Is Hol Mars a grifter? So I don't know if you saw what he's doing on X.
I did see that. I did.
To me, it's kind of cringe. So he basically, I don't blame him, but it's kind of cringy. He basically posted on X and he said, I really want to buy the Cybertruck, but it's too expensive. Please donate to me. If you want, which he's not forcing anyone to do anything. He's just put it up there. And if people want to give their money to that, they can. I think, in my opinion, there's better places if you want to give away money to do that. There are foster children or animals shelters. And,
none of that matters, Chris. I need a cyber beast. That's what's
so I'm putting it up there because, people like to talk about this stuff. I think it's pretty cringe. At the same time, I'm like, I want to do that. What the heck? I want my Cybertruck. I'm not going to. But,
I will play devil's advocate for a second because I did something which I don't think is the same thing, but some might say similar because I had a Tesla fund when a few years when I decided I want to get a Tesla. But I will say,
I remember you talking about that.
The narrative was a little bit different because I was coming at it from the standpoint of we are getting a Tesla. We are buying one. And the fund is basically where every dollar the channel makes is going, regardless of if it's a super chat, ad revenue, all the money generated from the Patreon and the EV channel is going straight towards this fund. And how much we get will variate which model, which trim we buy and at what time. So I wanted people to be aware of, by the way, every dollar you donate is going towards this. But it was not like if we don't hit certain threshold, we're not going through with it. It was a for sure thing. It was happening. It was just, do you want to accelerate that timeline? Here's how. And I didn't own a Tesla. I think that's kind of one of the strict differences here. Omar has a Model S that he doesn't.
A brand new Model S.
Which I think is kind of weird. I mean, I could get more behind it, I guess, if he said, yes, I will be selling my Model S to offset the cost, or I'm definitely getting a Cybertruck. This will just help me accelerate my savings toward that goal. That I would have said, okay, yeah, you're right. There's definitely better ways to spend your money. Or if you want to donate, sure. But this one is just a little bit weird because he's not willing to sell the Model S. And
it's weird. And I think the day before he said to me, because he said, oh, maybe I should just get it and I'll make, the money back from content, which is a legit strategy. And
you need to
I was
make
like,
a lot though.
Like that's what I said. He was like, maybe I'll make up the extra 20K by getting the foundation series, by making content. And I responded, I was like, there's no way you're gonna make 20K making Cybertruck content, because on top of what he already does, he already is very successful on X and YouTube and stuff. So is he gonna increase another 20K on top of that, right? And he responded and he said, I already make 10,000 a month on social media. So, yes, I can. And, then the next day he's like, hey, everybody pay me. So we don't need to talk about this too long. In my opinion.
Especially with that income, I'm even more confused why you would.
Exactly. Yeah. What I will say from this side, like the being a content creator side, you do get a lot of people that are very eager to give you money. I don't know what it is, but there are people that just kind of just fall in love with your content or just enjoy it so much or whatever it is. They're like, please let me give you money. And he's not doing anything wrong. Technically, I don't blame him. It's kind of weird. I wouldn't do it, but it's not a good look in my opinion. I actually
kind of affects your credibility. It affects people's opinion of you a little bit. If you're
and then
what are you trying to do?
And then 0.1% of people stop following you. Everybody else forgets, and you have a Cybertruck. So I did.
You're saying it's cringe, but I get it.
Yeah, no, totally. Like it's cringy. I personally wouldn't do it, but I understand it. I had started a Minecraft server over 10 years ago, and I built up a pretty big community there. I mean, we had hundreds of players, and I had no type of donation system or anything. And these people, they're mostly kids, playing Minecraft, and I was a lot younger too, but they basically bullied me into opening a donation setup because I was like, I don't want to do that. It's weird. Like, I don't mind running the server for you guys and we'll all have fun. And they're like, and long story short, it was like, some months were over $1,000 they were sending for this
Wow,
server when I
that's
was willing to
amazing.
do it for free. So you just get that kind of
That
stuff.
is
All right.
weird.
It's
Hmm.
weird. All right, let me stick with some of these Cybertruck questions for now. There are some FSD
Oh,
questions
sure.
we will get to.
Okay.
And we'll do that. So this is a good question. We'll see what you think. So Fearsome Beard says, I configured it and added the 250 non-refundable deposit. Should I take delivery even though it's $20,000 more? So for anyone that doesn't know, Foundation Series Cybertruck, some people are getting invited to configure. You can either get all-wheel drive or Cyber Beast. And it's, 80,000 for all-wheel drive, 100,000 for Cyber Beast. But for the Foundation Edition, Tesla has added $20,000, which gives you FSD and some other things that are probably not worth $20,000. It's
Correct.
kind of like you can pay extra to get it faster. So what do you think about this? Do you think it's worth spending 20,000 to get it, maybe a year earlier? We don't know, but let's say.
I would not personally, just because having watched a lot of Tesla vehicles ramp and come to market, I think the new factor will wear off fairly quickly, and especially as they hopefully run up to 250,000 a year. It sounds crazy, but the Cybertrucks at that point are basically going to be as common as Model 3s. Right now, that sounds surreal. Like, what? They're just everywhere. They just flood the market. But at that point, basically, resale value drops a lot faster for you, and I don't think people are going to pay much of a premium for the little badging on the back or whatever. So me personally, I would advise against it. I would say it's not worth it. It's hilarious to me that they added a 250 deposit on top of the 100.
That's
It's like,
also cringe.
uh, I mean, it's
Why?
hilarious, but it's also classic Tesla. I think from a shareholder's perspective, this is a genius idea. Dare I say I predicted it in several of my videos. I said when supply is super low and demand is crazy high, the price is going to reflect that. So I
Yeah.
remember, I think on a few occasions saying I could see the Cybertruck getting up to 120 because, Model X was 120 grand last January. And I'd say Cybertruck is a far superior vehicle than that. And far more interesting, far higher in demand because Model X has been in production for several years. Cybertruck just came out. It's the first truck with NACS, period. So just for those reasons, yeah, if you don't want to buy it, Tesla's going to find someone else that will. So it's just a
Yeah.
question to me of like, how long will they maintain the founder's pricing?
Yeah. No, I pretty much agree with you from like a overview standpoint for like the average person. I think it's probably not worth it for most people. I was talking to Stephanie about this and I was like, what's funny is if we were like super rich millionaires and we could buy this, founders edition and just kind of store it in our garage, then I bet in 20 years we could resell it for like a ton of money because it would have low mileage. We wouldn't have to drive it. We'd use our other cars and it would have this special badging. But being a normal person who actually has to use the vehicle and will put tons of
Right.
miles on it, you lose that benefit. And who knows?
Mhm.
I mean, what if they make 100,000, founders edition? I mean, it probably won't be that many, but the more they make, the less that badge has value. To me
It's true.
personally, I think the badge is very cool. And I think it's kind of like almost worth it in the sense of like, if you're in that position and you're that excited, then this is something special you can get. And from content creation, of course, for me, if I buy it, it's a tax write-off, and then I can make
Oh, yeah.
content on it. But I ain't gonna make $120,000 or
I
$100,000
don't
making
think so.
content. No, not even close. I mean, some people
No.
were like, "Oh, you'll make the money back," and I'm like, "Do you think I'm like MKBHD or something?" It doesn't quite work that way.
People who don't understand YouTube revenue probably think,
Yeah,
oh, well, you write it off. That makes it free, right? It's a
yeah,
free car at
exactly.
that point. I've seen
Yeah,
people suggest that many times, but I suppose it comes down to what your income is. Obviously a millionaire, sure, do what you want, spend the extra 20 grand, no big deal. But I have a feeling if you're asking the question, it's probably a no. If
yeah,
you have enough money
that's-
to afford it, you're not asking. You're just doing it. You're
yeah.
Serena Williams' husband.
Yeah. So funny. Yeah, people say that. And I saw somebody on X say, like, if you can afford $100,000 truck, you can afford $120,000 truck. And I'm like, I get where you're coming from. There's probably a lot of people that's true, but there are some people where there's a cutoff because then, okay, if you
Oh,
can afford
definitely.
120, then you can afford 150. If you can afford
Yeah, yeah.
150, you can afford 200,000. And then I was like, so you might as well just buy a yacht, just scale all the way up to, a $10 million yacht.
Yeah, that's a real weak argument. I had a lot of people doing that when I was deciding that I wanted the LFP Model 3. they were like, well, if you're spending that much, you might as well get a long range. If you get a long range, you might as well get a Y. If you get a Y, you might as well get a performance. If you get a performance, you might as well, you can play that game all day. And I was like,
Yeah.
nah, at a certain point, it's just cash back in my pocket. If someone told me, we'll get you your Cybertruck next year, you just have to wait and we'll hand you $20,000 cash today, I'd go, well, yeah, that sounds pretty good. Kind of look at it backwards instead of
Yeah.
it's costing you
Yeah.
this much. Look at it as, what if someone just handed you the cash right now and it
Yeah.
costs the same later?
I totally agree. I do the exact same thing so the example I always use is when people ask me like about the white seats. They're like, is it worth it? Do you like them? And I'm like, you know what? I do enjoy them. I like that in the summer when I get in the car, it's really not super hot because the white seats make the white interior makes a giant difference there. And I like the way it looks.
Yeah.
It's roomy, but if somebody walked up to me right now and said, here's $1,000, but I'm going to turn your seats black, I'd be like, okay, give me $1,000. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's fair.
So
my motivation was also timeline. Back in 2022, it was like super long waits to get the Model 3. And if you optioned it in any way above the base model, you got it a little bit sooner. So I was trying to get it as soon as possible because I wanted it for a big road trip we were doing that summer. So I spec'd it with the white because I didn't want the bigger tires. Those were worse for efficiency, the ride comfort, the efficiency. I love the white exterior and I didn't want to pay $2,000 for red. So I liked kind of the white on white styling. And so I said, okay, I'll get the white interior. Hopefully that speeds up the delivery process. Also, I kind of like the white, but I'm with you. If it had no effect on delivery timeline, then yeah, I probably would have stuck with black.
Yeah, in that context, it makes sense. And I remember I got my Turo one before you, and you're like, what's going on over there? I'm like, dude, I don't know.
Totally
like,
forgot.
I was like, I got lucky.
So bad. I was so angry. I remember that.
Okay, so I want to answer this really quick. So Skylar is asking, Chris, if efficiency is your priority back then, why were you considering a pickup? So earlier, and if you weren't here, I had said when I bought my Model 3, it was either that or Silverado. Well, efficiency is very important to me, but utility is also extremely important to me, and that's another reason the Cybertruck is so so attractive to me, because efficiency is off the charts again in the terms of all vehicles on earth, and truck. Utility, yes, for a truck, and utility is off the charts in terms of I'm not going to scratch the paint kicking rocks up on the dirt road. I drive against brush all the time. All the trees and bushes come into the road and they scrape, when I scrape up against them and they scratch my paint, and like it's just something now that I'm like, well, that sucks, but oh well, I'm going to use my car.
Right.
So it was this, utility versus efficiency kind of argument. And for me, efficiency won out because I would use a pickup, but I don't need it. So yeah, that's, I just wanted to kind of explain that for everybody.
That's fair.
All right. We have a couple other Cybertruck ones here. And if you see anything you want me to, pull out, please let me know. Yes, the white interior definitely brightens the cabin. There was one about the camper. I don't know much about this. Anyone have news about the high-tech camper for the new Cybertruck called Cyberlander? I ordered one from upcoming Cybertruck. So they've been advertising this thing forever. This is a third-party accessory.
I looked into them real close.
Okay, go for it. What do you know, and what do you think about this?
They took a lot of funding. They got a lot of reservations. I haven't spoken to anyone from them, but my concern basically is that they built their whole company and their whole product off of outdated dimensions. And they insisted on Twitter that they can make it work with the current bed, but I'm less confident because the Cybertruck bed, at least to me, looks a lot smaller than the original prototype, which is kind of what they were designing for. And I haven't seen them officially post. I believe I'm subscribed to them and following them and stuff, but I haven't seen them post like an official production intent. Here's everything working. I've seen renderings, but that only gets you so far, especially if you were basing it off of outdated dimensions. So I'm skeptical that there's a way to make it work, but I like the concept. I think that company will still deliver something really cool. I don't think it will be similar to the Cybertruck. I don't think it'll be as cool as the original unveiled prototype. The original concept is just way too good to be true.
Oh, come on. I love the current Cybertruck.
It's good. It's honestly great. I love the the actual production Cybertruck. I just think the expectations were way out of whack, which is why I spent, 2-3 years trying to warn people. Like,
Yeah.
I was preemptively defending it all this time, and people looked at me as a hater or a Tesla bear for saying that, hey guys, I don't think the truck's going to be cheap, and I don't think the range is going to be very good. And then shut up, Drew. Why are you so critical? Why are you so hateful? Just have hope, be optimistic. And then here we are, and now I'm the hopeful one. Now I'm the optimistic one, and all these people going, Tesla disappointed us. I was like, not me.
Yeah.
My expectations were in line. Yeah, there it is.
There you go. That's the Cyberlander. Sorry, I was working on getting that up so we could
good.
see it
You're
while you were
good.
talking. So that's the Cyberlander for anyone that doesn't know. This is one of those things that, yeah, I am very skeptical of this kind of stuff. And they did a lot of advertising via YouTubers, if I'm not mistaken.
I think they did.
Yeah, they were like, YouTubers like I've done mid-roll ads too, where they do the mid-roll ads for this. And I'm like, this is for a vehicle that's not even, we don't even know anything about, technically. And
the dimensions.
You don't have anything. So how are you like taking money for this? But I agree with you. It seems like the company, I mean, I don't think they're trying to scam anyone, but it's just one of those things like, can they, get through what they're really trying to do? So I think eventually, but I haven't heard any updates. No, just like you said. So
what I love the idea of is trying to live on the road with like a vehicle that has access to superchargers and you don't need to tow. That's a big difference, especially when it ties into the range argument, which is why I love the idea. I love the concept of putting in some kind of additional space in the bed that can unfold when parked and fold up when you're driving so that your range is barely affected. It's just a little bit higher payload. But I'm not sure if what their concept, I'll make you work harder. They had interior pictures basically showing that there were like these beds and a TV and a desk. And my pitch that I've been pushing for a long time is I don't think you need all that because, I mean, the second row seats fold upwards and the front row seats can fold down. I'm the kind of guy that is car camped just sitting in the driver's. Oh, sorry. There's fireworks everywhere. I'm the kind of guy that can, I can just sleep in the driver's seat, just fold it down. You put some pillows underneath your legs. My wife can do the same thing. So I'd be sleeping in the cab because that's where you get HVAC so you can keep it running for camp mode. And I would love to have a big accessory in the bed that unfolds like that, but it's just a bathroom. I call it the cyber potty. Okay. You put your black water tank, you got your shower in there, you got a stand-up shower. Because that's the hardest part of car camping is like, yeah, you can sleep in the back of your Model X and you can have HVAC running and you're comfortable and you can drive around, eat out. You don't need a kitchen, right? Because you're saving money. You're not getting a hotel. But the hardest part is, oh, okay, what do we do about the toilet? What do we do about the shower? We got to do a truck stop, or we got to get a gym membership or something. I love this concept of living on the road. That's not how I would utilize the bed space.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I kind of agree. And the the whole
comfortable
solar
chairs.
panel. The whole they got to convince us by telling us they're comfortable. Bucket underneath. The concept of the solar panels for this thing, obviously it gives you something, but so I have solar on my house and we have 35 panels, I believe, on my house. Okay. And that is not enough for our two EVs. So
oh wow,
you're gonna need a lot of sun a lot of panels to be able to really make a dent.
I don't even know if Tesla's announced if that's possible. Can you charge it from a solar accessory that doesn't plug in via NACS?
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, we don't know.
There was rumors in the code about the solar tonneau cover, but that never formulated into anything. But I'd be very curious about that. But even so, regardless, you're right. The bigger problem that more people should be aware of is how solar translates to energy consumption. And the Cybertruck
we can do it really easily right here. So, let's say how many solar panels you could get there? 5. I mean, that's a lot. That's a lot of solar panels. Like 5 400 kilowatt panels, you think? You think that's reasonable or you think that's too much?
On the Cybertruck?
Yeah, if you're parked, I'm saying parked and you can fold it out.
Okay. Unfold.
Do you think 5 is reasonable or you think that's too much?
How much per panel? 400
400
watts or
watt panels. Yeah, 400 watts, so
okay,
big
yeah.
panels.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay. You could probably get 5 to unfold.
Okay, so that's 2 kilowatts. You know how long it's gonna freaking take you to charge a Cybertruck? And you're not gonna get
Right.
2 kilowatts the whole time. You're gonna get that maybe, 5 or 6 hours a day if you're lucky. I mean, it's it's crazy.
Yeah, it's not great.
Um, yeah, so 43 panels for Tesla Mojo, and he's in Florida. He's saying it's still
Oh,
not enough.
geez. See, this
So
is why I'm such an efficiency guy, is because when you get your watt hours per mile down to like sub 200, that's when solar starts to really translate into meaningful miles.
100%. And then let's do this one. This is a pretty interesting question. So how long before
Mm,
Tesla raises the price of the Cybertruck? So I'll go first. In my opinion, I don't think they're going to do a price raise anytime soon, because I'm sure they did a lot of thinking about the price before they revealed it to everybody.
yeah.
At the same time, if people are nonstop buying these, special edition Cybertrucks,
Mhm.
then they are going to raise the price. Yeah, I mean, Tesla's very elastic with that. So
Right.
in my opinion, especially with the interest rates the way they are right now, I don't think we're going to see this. I don't think it's impossible, though. What do you think?
Yeah. I'll play devil's advocate. I think it will. I think it will go
Okay, when do you think
depending
they're going to raise them?
mm, yeah, there's so many variables, so I could be totally wrong, especially with interest rates, but I think at some point interest rates sounds impossible. At some point, interest rates will probably go down, and I
Mhm.
don't Cybertruck demand will change much. If anything, it'll go way up because the interest rates are better, so people will feel more comfortable collecting more debt because they'll go, "Oh, I'll, spread it out over the life of the truck because I can afford it and the interest rates are better." So Tesla will probably get away with a little bit more. I'm reminded back to earlier in January where the base cheapest Model X was 121 grand. The Plaid was like 140.
Yeah, that was
And I feel
crazy.
like I feel like the only person who remembers this. Everyone's like, no, they wouldn't price it like that. I'm like, guys, like a year ago, these were
Yeah.
all 140, 150. The Cybertruck, in my opinion, is a way better vehicle in every way than the Plaid Model X. And there's a ton of demand and a lot of people backing out probably just because of the expectations being too high or the interest rates. But as the interest rates normalize, it might make more sense to hike them. I don't know if we'll see it hit 200 grand, but I
Oh,
won't
that'd
be
be
shocked
crazy.
if it goes up a bit more than what it is right now.
Yeah, that was kind of my thing with the Cybertruck pricing with all the
Mm,
speculation is I just kept saying, look at Model X. Look at Model X. This is already a ramped vehicle. And
right.
look how expensive it is. Cybertruck can be that much cheaper than that, especially because the battery will have to be bigger, which it is.
Yep.
It's actually not as much bigger than I thought. I thought we were getting 130 kilowatt hours easily.
I was
And
surprised, honestly, by the size, but given the energy density of the cells, it kind of makes sense why the higher range option's not prioritized. But
mhm.
um, yeah, I think we're also living in a bit of a tech bubble. All of the Tesla people are fully aware of the Cybertruck deliveries, and we're all talking about it. And okay, it's out. I saw one, but I've still talked to a handful of people in my family and friend circle that aren't aware that deliveries have begun, and
Oh
some
yeah.
people that are barely aware the Cybertruck even exists. Even The Rock was on Joe Rogan. He was like, "Does
Yeah,
Tesla
that was
make an
weird.
SUV?" You know, and people go, "Oh my god, how are you so out of touch?" But that's just most of the world, really. Most of the
Right.
world is not browsing Twitter looking for Tesla news, Tesla updates. And in my experience, what sells Teslas more than anything, more than advertising, more than Elon, more than all of that put together, is butts in seats and turning heads. And the first few thousand Cybertrucks being delivered is going to suddenly spark a lot more interest, and you'll probably get a lot more demand once people realize, oh, this is no longer a, you know, concept car. This is in production.
Right.
People are delivering it, and they watch some YouTubers review it that are not huge. They watch some smaller YouTubers review it. They go, okay, this guy actually really likes it. He's being real, and I kind of want one now.
Yeah.
We're going to see a different wave of demand from outside the tech bubble, and that could push prices higher too.
Yeah, for sure. I went to the dentist this morning, and the dentist had heard of it, but he had no idea that they were started deliveries. And the
Yeah.
tech, she had never heard of the Cybertruck at all. She had never heard that word before. And I was like, "Oh, have you heard of the Cybertruck?" She goes, "What? Oh, what is that?" And I was like, "Oh, Tesla's making a truck." And she goes, "Oh no, I never heard of that." That was she had no idea. So now,
Yeah.
I mean, if she ends up Googling it, I don't know if she will. She'll be like, "What the hell is this thing?" You know, like she's never even seen
Or
it.
she just
I mean,
sees one, you know, just
right?
driving down the
Or
road. She'll
maybe
be
she
like,
saw it, didn't realize, you know, maybe 4 years ago or whatever. So yeah, it's kind of weird.
"What's
All right,
going on? What is
let's
that thing?"
let's move on to, because I do have a title here that says FSD, so
Oh,
I
we
have
gotta
that in the
stick to
title. So
that.
let's well, no, I just want to because there are some FSD questions, so I want to do that.
Sure, sure.
But if people want to get back to Cybertruck, you know, like I said, this is all about the audience, so you guys just ask whatever you want to hear about. So we got some pretty decent ones here. We'll start with this. So are we getting FSD V12 for Christmas? So it's been my opinion for a long time that that's the goal, is that Tesla wanted it out in time for Christmas. Now that we're like 3 weeks away, it seems unlikely. I still don't think it's impossible. I do think that what's happening over there right now, of course, it's total speculation, is these guys are going crazy working on it and doing whatever they can to get it pushed. I think it's very unlikely that it's out by Christmas, but I do think that's still a goal internally. So I would love to see it. I hope to see it, but you know, Elon talked about it. He did the live stream months ago, which in my opinion was very impressive, especially for the state it was at. And you think it's been that many months of, I don't know, whatever development they do, feeding it videos and sitting there and while it learns, I don't know. So it's got to be so much better than what we already saw, you would hope. But he barely talks about it. I mean, he's too busy talking about, you know, all these conspiracy theories. Well, okay, I shouldn't say that. He
spends
not
too
right.
much time on Twitter in more ways than one.
Yeah, well, the only reason I said that is because of him bringing back Alex Jones. But I mean, he does talk about other things that are very important. But he talks about a lot of other things that are not FSD or even Tesla a lot of the time now. So we haven't heard much in the way of updates. You know, I think 4 weeks ago we got FSD is coming to customers in 2 weeks. And then about a week after that, it went to employees. So I got excited and people got really excited because, you know, there's the employee and then it will start to come to customers sometimes. But so far it hasn't materialized. So I will add on to that. The employees that got it, it was a small pool of employees. It wasn't the full, all employees got it. It was like an engineering group. I don't know the numbers, but it's small. It wasn't because all employees with FSD, from my understanding, can kind of opt into this early access where they get it before the customers. It is not that pool. So once it goes to that pool, that's when you'll probably start to see like even some leaks of release notes or little video snippets, because even though these employees aren't supposed to share that stuff, they usually will. And from my understanding, they definitely can get fired from doing that, but they normally don't. So although some have. So if you're an employee, don't leak it. But anyway,
it's not worth it.
Yeah. So what do you think? I mean, you were nodding no, you don't think this is coming by Christmas?
I don't think so. Every FSD timeline I've learned to immediately like double it, triple it, quadruple it, and you'll probably be right. I don't think I don't know. Every day I get a little bit more bearish on the whole level 4, level 5 stuff. Just because, you know, I watch your videos, I watch lots of people's videos, and I've been watching them for many years now. You know, we got beta, I think, over 3 years ago. And we're
November
still
2020. October.
we're still in that, yeah, we're still in that level 2 zone of we have to supervise it because it might do the wrong thing at the wrong time. And I think Tesla is probably having I predict they're having a big internal debate about this, because Elon in particular has been kind of banking on FSD changing the whole state of the company, and that's how you should value it. And it's going to be so good, and it's going to kill car ownership and all this stuff. And there's got to be the same, as much as there's a debate externally, I think there's a debate internally going on about, is that really the narrative we want to push? Because we've been trying to get this code right for years and years, and we keep discovering new problems or digging up old ones when we fix one, you know, like your lane drift concerns. Those kinds of things still exist, and you talk about them and you report them as much as you can, and people are like, okay, it's been 6 months of this and we're still
7,
not really
8,
getting,
yeah.
it's climbing. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, I do believe that Tesla's tackling autonomy in the best way possible. I don't think there's a better way to do it, but I'm not convinced that means level 4, level 5 is obtainable. Like, some people are convinced it's more of a when, not if. I'm falling more into the if category, and I don't want to be right. It's the same thing with the Cybertruck pricing. I don't take pleasure in this, but the more time goes by, the more validated I feel, especially if I go through a construction zone and there's weird signs waving me around, and I'm just like, okay. Or the wipers are getting confused. And people with FSD are complaining. People without FSD are complaining. I'm just like, okay. Like my autopilot shut off the other day just because the sun was hitting at the right angle, or a bug splatted on the camera. Now it's confused, and I'm like, how is this supposed to be? I'm in love with the concept of level 3, so I would settle for that. I would be happy if I didn't have to pay attention in all circumstances. If it was just highway driving, you don't have to look, but once we exit the freeway, you do have to pay attention. That would be an amazing milestone. It wouldn't be robotaxi, but that would be great progress. And we still can't even get to that stage yet. So I'm losing hope every day.
Yeah. I hear you on that. And I'm at the point where I love using it. I still use it, daily. I mean, I use it for pretty much all of my driving, but with tons of interventions and disengagements in terms of, obviously if I make a video, people don't want to see me drive. They want to see what the car's capable of. So I leave it. I let it go slow. I let it maybe do some bad things as long as it's safe. But in my daily drive, I'm planning on making a video about this because I've been planning on it for a while, but I got a comment recently and they're like, I see, you did the drive and you didn't have to really take over, but this is not this is not what like a new customer can expect. And that's totally true. Yes, I can push it and see what it's capable of, but nobody's, most people are not going to be using it in that way. And so I want to make a video the way I actually use it, because I do use it for all of my driving, but that comes with a ton of accelerator pushes, a ton of lane changes, a ton of, either steering inputs or something. And not so much steering inputs. I usually let the car do all of that pretty much always, unless it's dangerous.
Sure.
But I want to go over the way it's actually used and what people can expect, new customers, if they purchase it, because, especially with the free trial you get now, if you use a referral code, which everybody should, then you get 3 months to try it out. And so my coworker actually just bought a Model 3 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Oh, nice.
And yeah, he got the same one as you. And he absolutely loves it. He was skeptical of, all the EV stuff. Like he's not a crazy person, but he just was like, yeah, I like my car. I don't really care about, yo, Gregor Tricker, what up? I don't really care about, electric or gas. He's like, I don't drive that much anyway. And I'm like, dude, you'll love it. I let him drive my cars. Anyway, long story short, we went out to lunch the other day and last week, and I was like, oh, use FSD. I want to see, what you think and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, do you use it? And he's like, not really. It kind of like accelerates too hard. And then like it brakes too late. And he's like, it's just not that comfortable. He's like, so I'd rather just, kind of drive myself. And I was like, yeah, that's understandable. And then he starts to kind of justify what he's saying. And I'm like, no, you don't need to do that for me. I just want to know, like, someone who's not a complete nerd. He doesn't read any Tesla news. He's just a guy who bought a car. And I was like, you're the exact person I want to hear from, because for me, I'm way too inundated. I'm surrounded by all the nerds, the ones that either hate it or love it. And so he let it drive. And I mean, it was a very short drive. And we got one pretty big phantom brake, which I haven't had in a long time, but we did in that drive. I took some videos that I've been meaning to post. I just haven't gotten to it yet. At one point it like veered towards an oncoming car. And he's like, oh, we get back, and he's got a good attitude. And he's like, yeah, so it only tried to kill us like 3 times, and we're all laughing about it and stuff. But I mean, that's the state it's in, and Elon's been saying for 10 years that it's, going to be solved at the end of the year. So from my perspective, this is very long-winded. From my perspective, I really enjoy the product I have. I wish it would, make less mistakes and be better. I enjoy it as it is, but going to the level 4, level 5, I'm still to this day, I'm like, okay, like, sure, whatever. Like, I just don't believe it. You know what I mean?
I think it's an expectation thing. Same thing with the Cybertruck is the more you realize using the phrase, but Elon said, doesn't usually go very well. I found if you tune him out and just assume he's way too optimistic and he's going to talk up a huge storm, you're going to be disappointed if you listen to everything he says. But if you tune it out and just look at the state of the product, the Cybertruck, the production model, you know, cross compared with all the other Rivians and F-150s and everything else on the market, it's an amazing pickup truck. Like, it does so many things that no other vehicle can. And yeah, okay, amazing vehicle has expensive price, but if you didn't have that expectation, but Elon said it has to be affordable compared to the Lightning. Elon said that.
Yeah.
Don't listen to that. Just look at it as a product and you won't be disappointed. Same thing with FSD. I love the fact that there's a company working so hard to make autonomous driving safer, and they're trying to make it work everywhere. I just wouldn't call it FSD. That's my biggest problem with it, is that name kind of associates, especially the F, full.
Yep.
They're doubling down. Full. You can't even say partial self-driving. I'd be okay with self-driving more than full. You know, we've got to emphasize it does everything. No, it really doesn't. But if you just look at it as a software feature today, yeah, it's amazing. It's really cool that a car is capable of handling all of those turns, roundabouts. You know, you could probably, if you had a heart attack, plug in the hospital, and it would probably get you there. It might confuse some people along the way,
Yeah.
but there's a much greater chance of you making it in a Tesla than anything else if you had a heart attack. You
Right.
can't, nothing else is even attempting turns right now. It's incredible. But
Yeah.
I just wish the expectations would be a little bit more in line. If we just called it, I think we should just have free autopilot and then call everything else enhanced autopilot. That's what I would brand it.
Yes. Yeah, that's fair.
The city street turning, and autopilot is a great name because that implies, you know, the vehicle, the vessel, the plane, the car, whatever, can keep you on your course, but autopilot does not mean there is no need for a pilot. You know, there's no need for a driver. So I'm in favor of the autopilot terminology. I don't like the term FSD. It sets the expectation wrong from the beginning.
I hear you. Yeah, I almost feel like at times, and this is totally just me making things up, but I almost feel like Tesla has left that name because it's such an easy thing to attack. It makes it so that people kind of waste their time and energy attacking the name rather than actually attacking anything else. You know, so they can, because who cares what it's called? You know, if you call it, you know, right. If you call it whatever, like not full self-driving, it's the same thing. The name doesn't actually change anything. So I don't know if they kind of strategically have done that. I mean, I think initially it came out of the fact that Elon wanted to be like, yes, it's going to do full self-driving. But part of, I feel like the reason, there's probably two, is number one, well, he believes and doesn't want to like admit defeat, which it wouldn't be, but he, you know, maybe thinks of it that way. And number two, possibly it's an easy thing to attack. It's a waste of time because who cares? So.
Yeah, I agree. I think he believes it. I don't think he's malintended. I think he genuinely believes it's possible, but both as a pro and a con, Elon's not a quitter, which is great if you want someone to make a startup electric car company, because it's incredibly hard. It's downright near impossible to turn an EV company profitable. So you need someone who's not a quitter to just, you know, sleep at the factory, work really, really hard. But sometimes there are projects that or narratives, at least I should say, where it might be time to kind of rethink your technique, rethink your strategy. I personally think Tesla would be much better off if they stopped pushing the narrative that we don't need to design cars with steering wheels because everything's going to be autonomous very quickly. If you stop pushing it, and probably the more damaging thing is when Elon says things like, we don't need to turn a profit on the cars because our long-term profits will be on robotaxi. When you say things like that, a lot of investors are going, okay, so you mean the whole future of the company is based around how good this software is. If you have one bad update, now the investor's like, okay, the company's toast. Like that was the whole thesis. So if you disconnect it from, okay, the company can only succeed if it becomes a robotaxi fleet, then also the legality thing, I don't think people are aware of enough.
Yeah. No, that's a big part of it. Do you want to respond to this? Are you looking at the comments that I'm putting up? Says Drew, don't you think full self-driving beta is an accurate name? They're shooting for full autonomy, but the beta says they are not there yet.
I mean, they slap beta on everything. I don't know if that really helps or what narrative that somewhat pushes. I like auto steer still has beta terminology, even though it's been a thing for like almost 10 years. So I think it's just a mouthful, and I think it sets the wrong expectation from the beginning, because that full self-driving beta implies, I mean, with a lot of games and a lot of software, people associate beta with, well, in a couple of months it'll be done. or maybe in a year it'll be done. And I don't think we should send that narrative that, well, in a
Right.
year this will be all complete and then it'll be full self-drive. No, don't get people's hopes up. Don't call
Yeah.
it, it's full self-driving beta is kind of like calling it the $25,000 Tesla, or a more
Yeah, no,
direct
you
way
don't
of
want
calling
that.
it the $39,000 Cybertruck. I don't think we should call it that.
Yeah. Yeah, and on the website, it doesn't say full self-driving beta when you select it. It just says you're buying full self-driving.
That's
So,
true. That's
yeah.
true. I didn't think of that.
So this one ties in nicely from John Kraus. Do you think it's possible they genuinely achieve a significant level of autonomy, but just keep it level 2 forever as to avoid legality issues? So I would say, I mean, this, is very up for interpretation, because what does significant level of autonomy mean? In my opinion, especially compared to other vehicles, I think they have achieved a significant level of autonomy. Finally, I wouldn't have said this in the beginning, because for the first, about 2 years or so, even when I tried, which I made a video and I said right in the beginning, I'm literally trying to make an easy route. I'm not trying to trick anyone. I want to see if the car can finally get somewhere without me doing anything, because I've been doing this for a while and it can't make it anywhere. So I did like a 2-mile route with like 2 turns and it couldn't do it. Whereas now I tried to make the easiest route possible. Whereas now I can, realistically make it multiple drives in a week and do absolutely nothing. Now, I don't normally do that because I like to press the accelerator, but it's very it's very possible that I do that. So I think they're pretty far along. But I think more probably what John is asking is like, do you think we get to a level where you could, close your eyes and go to sleep or text or something, but Tesla doesn't want to take the responsibility. They don't want to take liability. And so they'll just, you're in charge, you're responsible. So what do you think?
Yeah, that's a great question, actually. A good way to phrase it, because I think there has been some terminology on the website where there's like FSD is described as a level 2 a system, which I think people were implying, oh, this means even if it was the feature complete, they don't technically have to deliver on level 3, level 4. And yeah, there's a lot of regions in the US where there's not many like rules. There's a handful of places where regulators have developed a process to get a robotaxi on the street, like San Francisco. I believe there's a place in Florida where if you pass a certain set of requirements, like Chandler, Arizona, you have Waymo there, where they're like, yes, a vehicle can operate without a driver in the driver's seat. But I think it's a totally different scenario to suggest, okay, can I sell a vehicle to an individual and let that individual stop paying attention to their surroundings? That's not very common. Mercedes barely tapped into that with the level 3 system that only works when the moon is in the right position.
Exactly.
But
and did you see it failed? Not to get too off track, but it failed on the test course. Oh my gosh, that was embarrassing.
Well, it's just, I have not seen Tesla's risk appetite get very high. If anything, it's actually we've regressed in terms of liability. In the old Autopilot 1 days, I don't even think there was much of a steering wheel nag. I think it was easily.
So originally Autopilot did not have a nag on the steering wheel.
That's it. Yeah.
And they didn't have an interior camera or anything back then. And so people were posting these videos of like, oh, look, I got out of the driver's seat and stuff. And I mean, again, like kind of like what you said earlier, any other car, you'd be dead if you did that. So it's kind of cool. But like, that's very wrong. Don't do that. So Tesla was kind of forced. I wasn't following this closely back then, but I think there was some regulatory pressure to be like, all right, what are you doing to make sure people aren't doing this? So they added the nag at that point.
Yeah, I think the other problem I see with the legality thing, and Cruise probably set back robotaxis way more than people think.
Yeah.
That put a huge negative stigma now against robotaxis, which is probably going to affect regulators' approval of it now that they've seen there's a dangerous wrong way to do it. And the problem is Tesla wants to send out updates routinely. And as we've seen with these beta updates, you can have one update actually perform far worse than the previous one, which gets very annoying to regulators, because a regulator is going to say you have to be this safe, or you have to have this many interventions per 1,000,000 miles, or it has to be super safe. But then if you launch a new software update, and the difference here is this is a software update in control of millions of cars on the road. If that one update actually regresses below the threshold, then they have to ground all FSD. They turn it off on everybody's car because it's no longer legal. I don't see a quick, easy way. And a lot of the Tesla bull positions on robotaxis are like, well, Tesla's solution is the most scalable because they can just send an update out to all of their cars and now they have robotaxis everywhere. Legally, I don't think it's that simple. And I haven't seen proof. I mean, I've talked to Tesla bulls and lawyers about this, and some of them have said, well, people can sue Tesla now for how it performs already. You don't have to be level 3 or 4 to get sued. I'm like, okay, then why are there so many nags?
Yeah, but they also no, that's a lame argument because also people never win those lawsuits because it is on the driver. Anyone who thinks logically for half a second realizes that, yeah, even if the car does something dumb and it results in an accident or whatever, it's your fault because you should have had your hand on the wheel. It's very easy, to take over those things. But that's kind of been my kind of threshold of, people are like, when do you think it'll actually be autonomous, et cetera? And I'm like, well, I don't know when, but you'll know because Tesla will take liability. Because at that point, if it actually is autonomous and it actually is, I say the numbers a lot because people are like, oh, it's like, going to be 10 times safer than a person. And I'm like, all right, that makes no sense because people get an accident every 500,000 miles, right? So if FSD is 10 times safer, it's going to get into an accident every 5 million miles, which sounds great. But if you have 100, or if you have Tesla driving 5 million miles a day across all their cars, now you have a Tesla FSD accident once a day, right? So you need it to just
fault.
It'd be Tesla at that point. So
they have to take a lot more legal responsibility at that point,
right? You need it to be like 100 or 1,000 times safer than a person to have a few enough accidents that it's financially viable and accepted by regulators and things. But it's all a lot of speculation. The other thing, I don't want to spend too long on this, but the other thing is just redundancy of the system. Like, and I'm not an expert in this, and I feel like even to me, it's obvious that there's not enough. The front cameras, yeah, there's 2 up there, and the wipers can clean them off. But like you said, what if a bird craps on the wiper and it can't see for 3 seconds? Like, okay, you can't see going forward. Yeah, and it's gonna have, or the side cameras have no redundancy. The rear camera gets covered in mud all the time. So it's like, I don't know. It doesn't seem like there's enough physically there to get to a point where you're so fail safe that you can.
Vandalism is another big problem. I don't think people talk enough about. And people say, who's going to vandalize it? But this is going for people's jobs. This is going for taxi cab drivers, jobs. I think there's going to be a lot of people against the existence of these, a lot of unions that'll probably fight robotaxis. And it's going to be incredibly easy for them to take, one piece of flex tape, bam, at the airport when it's parked. Now it can't move, and who's responsible for it? If someone vandalizes your personal vehicle, you take care of it. You got to call someone. You got to get a tow truck, whatever. But a robotaxi, what happens? Now it's
I'm not as concerned about that one because I mean it's definitely a threat, but you can vandalize any car. Like one of the things people bring up is like, oh, what if someone puts a stop sign randomly and then it'll stop, which it would. Unless it wants to blow the stop sign, the fake stop sign. And I'm like, if somebody really wanted to cause chaos, they can go throw nails on the road and screw up all the cars that way. It's illegal. And sure, when these things are new, there'll be more people kind of screwing with them and stuff. But I think that's a really short-term problem. So yeah,
it's far more complex than I think Elon thinks it is. And that's why I wish they would change their narrative about it. I wish they would, and they might have actually started. I think more recently in interviews, Elon's kind of been more careful with the way he words it.
Yeah, I will add, and this was a couple of years ago, but when I went to the AI Day, I went to AI Day 2, and I was lucky enough to meet several of the autopilot team. It was such a weird experience because like, oh my gosh, love your videos, and I'm like, no, this is super. And I wish awesome. I would have. Well, I wish I would have been a little more investigative and talked to them more, but I got a little starstruck by these guys, and so I kind of froze every time. I was like, no, there's no way, like you're screwing with me. But anyway, I did talk to one of them. And they're like, so what are you thinking lately? How are the updates? What do you think of the progress? And I was like, like I'm impressed overall. I think it's great. But like the messaging, when you have Elon saying every year that it's going to be solved by the end of the year, people kind of get tired of it. And it diminishes how cool this really is because
it does. That's so true.
you're not at the goal. And then, you know, he kind of smirked, and I'm sure they weren't allowed to say much, but he was like, well, what do you think of that lately? And I kind of thought about it. And again, this is a couple years ago. I was like, you know, actually, to be fair, I haven't heard him say that in a while. He goes, yeah, it's, you know, he wouldn't say much more, but he basically implied Elon figured that out and he kind of calmed down. But then it was only a few months before he started doing it again.
Right, exactly. So, I was going to say, it definitely happened after AI Day 2.
It definitely did. But in that little pocket, there was a big area where he didn't kind of be like, oh, yeah, it's almost done or whatever.
Well, that little interaction you shared, that makes me feel like this is just as much a debate internally as it is externally. We're all debating what's the future actually going to look like in terms of autonomous driving. We all know it's going to be a great feature at the very least. It's a great incentive to buy a Tesla over another car. But does that mean it will replace the need to own a car? That debate's probably going on. And I bet a lot of the board probably tried to pump the brakes on Elon and say, okay, you should be careful what you're, especially, I think the most annoying one for me was I watched Autonomy Day live back in 2019. And that was the presentation where he put the numbers up on the screen saying, you buy it today and it'll make you 30 grand a year. And there will be 1 million of them at the end of 2020. And that's just awfully scammy to me.
Yeah. I was very surprised to have hard numbers. And there was even the guy, you know, my first thought was like, okay, then you can just buy as many as you want because they're basically free.
Right.
Like, and somebody brought that up and he was like, okay, well, I'm just going to buy them all and make all the money. And, you know, he said it a little more professionally than that. And Elon's like, no, you can't do that. And he's like, yes, I can. And it was like this super awkward back and forth.
I mean, I remember collabing back then. I had friends that said, like, I'm buying up 5, 6 Model Ys with FSD because I'm going to have this fleet when I get older.
Yeah, a lot of this comes down to perception and expectations and like what you think is realistic. Because, you know, don't get me wrong, I was hyped by that first AI day and I was like, oh, this is sweet. Like, I hope this happens. But I didn't believe it. I mean, I'm a very optimistic person, but I'm also extremely skeptical. And if you don't have the evidence like sitting right in front of my face, I'm not going to believe you. Even if it's 100% true, I'm like, I need a little more than that. So for me, when these things don't materialize, I just like, you know, I'm like, oh, I wish that happened, but I'm not that disappointed because I never expected it to actually happen in the first place. Where I think a lot of people do take that at face value and they're like, holy crap, this is going to change the world. And then when it doesn't happen, they're like, oh, what the heck is this? So
I call it bull chow. It's stuff for the bulls to eat. They go, because funny. I think Tesla or maybe Elon has this idea in their head that it doesn't matter if Elon will attempt things that he knows are hard, difficult. I think he actually thrives on it. He doesn't like living life without attempting crazy, difficult things that, you know, he'll talk about Tesla and SpaceX all the time. Like, oh yeah, it was a horrible idea. And I knew that there wasn't a high chance of success. So again, pro and a con. The pro to that is that he can attempt things that no one else would even attempt because it's so ridiculous. The con is that you're left disappointed with a lot of the things he attempts. And I think another big bull chow is the bot. Like, you can basically, if a bunch of people are convinced that you're going to replace the entire labor force, you basically just need to convince a certain percentage of the population that they should pour all of their life savings into Tesla stock.
Yeah.
You don't need everyone, but if you just convince a little bit of people, oh yeah, okay, they're going to replace all jobs, I should probably invest. That it paid off, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, that's you know what? That's another one. I am so excited for Tesla Bot and like I want that thing so bad, but like I don't actually believe it's coming anytime soon. Even though I'm like hyped for it, I don't believe it.
I feel like I want it's the new, what do you call it? Big
the new FSD.
Dilemma. Yeah, it's like, okay, people with I remember people with hardware 2 or hardware 1 cars bought FSD when it first came out. It was like $3,000 or something. And they said every car from 2016 onward has all of the necessary hardware for full self-driving. Yeah, and those guys didn't get beta for like years because Tesla was like, oh, you're not important. We're focusing on hardware 3 because that has all of our special cameras and computers, everything we need. I'm like, Tesla could continue doing that where they go, oh, well, actually, the solution to FSD is to make a computer that can contextually know its surroundings as good as a human. In order to get that right, we need the bot working. So once we figure out the bot, then it can be easier. That's why we don't have actual smart summon, right? You know, like version 12
Yeah.
is supposed to fix all that, so we don't need to waste time working on it right now. We'll have everybody without ultrasonic weight.
Did you see my basically this live stream chat with Scott Walter?
I think a little bit, but
I would, if you have
remember.
like you're driving a lot or something, I would put it on
Yeah.
put it on in the background and listen to it, because he
Okay.
actually made me more excited for bot, because he works in robotics and all this, and he had some very realistic, like medium to short term kind of possibilities. And he was very
Okay.
open about like things the bot can't. He's like, nah, it's not going to do these things. Like that doesn't make sense. He's like, but what it can do, when it can replace, that got me more excited. Because he's talking about these certain factory, and he had, I mean, watch the video if you can, but at least listen to it. He had videos of specific things happening in Tesla's factory right now that the bot could moderately easily do. And
I've
his
heard
example,
of that. I've heard people talk about it.
Yeah. So his example is basically there's this machine where you have a part and you place it inside, and then you walk away and you press a button so that the machine doesn't squish you. And then while it's working, you do the exact same thing on the other side, and you go in and you put the thing and you press a button. And if you break this laser, it won't do it because, it doesn't want to squish you. And the human, messed it up at one point. And it is, I mean, it's honestly like you literally like pick something up and you put it over here. And then you go back and you pick something up and you put it over here. And he was like, this is something, he's like, I could easily see them getting the bot up and running to replace this specific job within, 12 to 18 months, or I don't know if he gave a timeline, but it was, and I was like, okay, that makes me excited, because now you have an actual application or an actual job is now replaced. I mean, sorry to that person, but that's just how technology works.
I wonder how many jobs are purely just that.
Well, not a lot, but the point was they could do it at some scale. And then from there you could, build up. So anyway, I'm excited for it, but yeah, I'm very skeptical of it. Are you good?
I think your expectations are in check. Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. Yeah, usually they are. I do get hype about certain things, and I do get very excited, but I'm always very skeptical. So let me get I do want to address this one real quick from John, and it's more speculation again, but so he's asking these bugs that, cause I know John, we talk on X, has the same problems as I do with the lane drift and the wipers, and he's asking, do you think that Tesla's ignoring these because they think FSD is going to fix them, or are they genuine bugs they can't resolve yet? So I definitely don't believe they're bugs they can't resolve yet, because these were not problems before. So there has to be some type of like regression or like, code they could, I don't know enough. Maybe I shouldn't be saying it this way, but they had a working system that didn't do these things before. So I got to believe they know how to get rid of them. Why are they not fixing them? Usually, and I actually did hear something along the lines of this from the team when I went to AI2. Usually it has to do with, it's just not a priority. It's not that they don't know. I guarantee you they know that this is happening. They know. Freaking fix it if you're in here listening. Like, what's wrong with you guys? But I guarantee they know. It's the answer simply comes down to it's not priority. Because I asked them, one thing I did ask them was why are there these super low-hanging fruits, that you're not working on, like no turn on red signs, or these little things that seem simple, but the car doesn't do. And they go, it basically comes down to our priority right now. Number one priority is safety. That's it. And which this lane change bug is actually a safety issue, in my opinion. But number one priority is safety, and all else comes after that. And we just kind of ignore it until we think we're at a point where we can start working on those other things. So my guess is that they just have, in their opinion, bigger fish to fry, and they're probably not experiencing these things. So I don't know. Yeah, FSD priority is California and Texas. Nothing else matters. I partially agree with that.
I don't think it's just like I don't think it's a big software stack of code that says, don't lane drift anymore. I think it's this really intricate,
that's how I'd write it.
Yeah, don't do bad thing. I think it's so much more. It's like this giant, complex neural network brain, especially with V12, which is supposed to be like, you don't hand code it or something. It's just, it
Yeah,
takes
they
in all these
deleted
ones and
300,000 lines of code and
yeah.
yeah.
To me, it's like, okay, I don't even think they know how to fix that. I think it's like it's a training program. Like
Mhm.
it's not as simple as just make it stop doing that. It's like you have to keep throwing different equations at it to get it to come out with the right answer. So that's why this stuff is so hard to develop and it's so hard to stick a timeline on. Software development in general is usually hard to put a timeline on. And this is even more intricate, more complex. And yeah, I think you're probably right that they've likely moved on to a completely different coding architecture to the point where spending time on the old architecture fixing a bug isn't going to matter because they know they've kind of hit their maximum on V11. So it's time to move on to a new strategy and hopefully that fixes it.
Right. And I see this a lot. Any code fixes will be thrown out with the rewrite is complete, which is true. And I get a lot of pushback and it's like, well, they're not going to fix it. They're working on V12. And we've gotten like 5 or 6 updates while we're waiting for V12.
Yeah, that's
Why
also
would
true.
they not address these things? I mean, if you think
Yeah.
of it, for me, it happens to me every single day, multiple times, the lane drifting.
Hmm.
And I'm so used to it. I'm still like, freaking idiot. I crank the wheel and I don't do voice reports anymore because after doing the same voice report literally for 6 months every single day, I was very diligent. I was like, oh, I'm helping. Oh, I'm
Yeah.
helping. No, I'm not. So I stopped doing that.
I have it on free autopilot. It does the same thing. And my wife was like,
oh
that's
yeah.
really annoying. Will that go away if we get FSD beta? And I was like, no, really.
No. No. And so I know. And so but for someone that's not used to it or not experienced or whatever, I feel like it's very dangerous. I posted a video to X not long ago showing what happens if you don't take over, and this thing
Mm.
zooms to the end of the ending lane.
Oh
And
yeah.
it will
Horrible.
slam the brakes and try to turn or get back or something if it can. But if there's a car next to you, I mean, it's really bad. And I saw a post on Tesla Motor Club forum, and a person, they didn't know, they must not follow the social medias and stuff, but they posted this problem and they were like, yo, this just happened to me at like 60 miles an hour. What is going on?
No, it is a
And they
safety thing.
Oh, for sure. And they were scared out of their mind. And, I
Mhm.
respond, I talked to them back and forth a little bit and kind of told them what to look out for and stuff. So now they know, but I don't know. I just can't believe that Tesla is leaving it like that.
It's very confusing. I agree.
Yeah. So, all right, let me take one more fun one here.
Cool.
We'll go from Mike in the Woods. I know you've talked a lot about Lucid. I don't follow them too closely.
Gotcha.
I saw Lucid is getting removed from the NASDAQ and their CFO resigned, not looking promising. Thoughts on what lies in store for Lucid? So my short answer to this is the only reason they're still in business is because they keep getting, money from their investors
Sure.
from Saudi Arabia or wherever.
Yeah, yeah.
There's no chance this company would still exist if they didn't have money being pumped into it. So my thought has been they're going to go bankrupt. There's going to be a point where whoever is pumping money into this, in my opinion, is going to be like, okay, we tried. Yes, we have, 500 billion more dollars, but we don't want to give you any
Uh-huh.
more. Let's just shut this down. It was a failed experiment. That's what I think is going to happen to Lucid. Though, if you would have asked me 3 years ago, I would have thought that would have already happened by now.
True.
So I would have
Me
been
too.
wrong.
Mhm.
But what do you think?
Well, I should preface they're being removed from the NASDAQ 100, which is different from being removed just
Sure.
from NASDAQ,
Yep,
period.
you're
Just
right.
slight terminology change there. The CFO resigning, honestly, was to me good news because I feel like the financials have been horrible. So I was like, yeah, maybe get someone else in there. I don't know who's taking over, but someone with maybe a better plan because I just think they need to halt production or severely scrap production on the Air. I don't think that car is helping them. Like they're losing
Yeah.
so much money every time they sell a Lucid Air. I really like the Lucid Gravity. I'm confused why they didn't start with that. I think they would have been far better off if they would have
Definitely.
started with the SUV. But yeah, similar to you, I would have predicted they'd be dead by now a few years ago. So it's totally up to the Saudis. If they want that company to exist, it will. And so far, there's still a thing. So that means someone with a lot of money believes in them and wants them to continue to exist. And I feel like at this point, if they've lost this much money, they probably feel like they've blown it all. Like they're not worried about losing more. It feels like they
Right.
just really, really want it to be a thing. So yeah, I think that the Saudis will most likely keep them afloat until the gravity hopefully brings them to profitability. But I don't own any Lucid stock. I would never tell any human being on earth to buy a share of Lucid. I had a few friends that bought the stock for fun, and I was like, "You're stupid. You should have just
Yeah,
lit the
that's
money on
weird.
fire." So I'm not like this Lucid like savior, like, yes, they will survive. I just think, well, they've made it this far. Yeah, the investors have the sunk cost fallacy, as Zaphod is saying.
Yeah, I actually, yeah, this is a huge point that Kurt is saying. I cannot believe they pay
Mm.
their CEO so much money
Oh
for
yeah.
losing money every year. If I was an investor, I would be like, no, you don't make money. Here's some
Right.
options. Just like Elon did. Elon didn't get an
Yeah.
income while Tesla was losing all that money. He got tons of options. And, people get all mad at him for being the richest person in the world. And it's because he put everything on the line. He wasn't
Well, and we
making
all bought the stock. That's why he's
exactly,
rich.
right, and he wasn't making millions of dollars a year. Well, and now Tesla makes a great profit and they have, what, $20 billion in the bank. He wasn't
Yeah,
getting
yeah.
millions of dollars every year and accumulating it to become this wealthy, crazy guy. He risked it all by accepting options as compensation to be like, all right, I'll reach this goal of whatever stock price, and then I'll get my compensation if I do a good job, which is how every, in my opinion, CEO and board member should be functioning. These are already, for the most part, wealthy individuals. They don't need to be
Mhm.
making millions of dollars a year. They need options in their companies so that they work hard to
Right.
make their company successful, and then they will reap that benefit, tenfold or whatever by doing that.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. The
I
fact that
like
he's
the
getting paid in cash shows his perspective on what the company's worth.
right. It's definitely it's super weird. It's a very weird setup. So yeah, I don't know if 300 million a year is the right number, but it's a large millions of dollars a year that he's
He was
making.
the highest paid automotive CEO,
Yeah.
despite having like the least, yeah, more than Ford, more than GM, all of those guys, and yet uh, having the worst losses of any vehicle in production. Basically, if they were smart, they
Yeah.
would stop production.
If they were smart, they would stop paying this guy all that money. Um,
Right.
so yeah, very strange. But okay,
That's a fun
that's
topic
yeah,
to
that's a
wrap
good
it
one.
up on.
All right,
Someone
thank you,
has a very
everybody.
expensive hobby.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you, everybody, so much for joining. I want to let you go, Drew, and I hope everybody enjoyed. Make sure you follow Drew on his different channels. Tailosive, just type Tailosive into YouTube and then click subscribe on the 20 channels that come up. He's got very good content on lots of different topics. So, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it.
Bye.
All right, bye. Have a good night.